Persona 3 is a title that I haven't got around to playing despite it collecting dust on my shelf for years. This is surprising since I love the Shin Megami Tensei series, and let's face it, Persona 5 is insanely good. Persona 3 has always been highly praised, so with the portable version recently being released for modern systems, what better time to jump in than now? Before we get into the review, if you liked this video, it would help me out a lot if you hit that like button and sub for more RPG content coming soon. Also, I'd like to thank the publishers for the review code, and all footage that you see is taken from the Steam version of the game. Alright, let's get into it. Before we get into the meat of the game, I need to talk about the different versions of Persona 3. I found it so strange that there really isn't a definitive version. There are essentially 3 versions of Persona 3. First, we have the original on the PS2 released in 2006. Then we have Persona 3 FES, which is an enhanced release for the PS2. This one contains an extra 30 hours of gameplay over the original, mainly through the game's epilogue titled The Answer. Finally, we have Persona 3 Portable, originally released on the PSP but recently made available on modern consoles. This is the version that I am reviewing, and boy oh boy is it different. For starters, that lengthy epilogue, The Answer, has been cut. If that's not bad enough, all of the fully animated cutscenes have been removed from this version in place of static portraits with text and voice acting. Not only that, but you can no longer freely explore the city or the school. You are now confined to a point-and-click interface. All is not doom and gloom, however, because it is the only version that allows you to control your other party members who previously acted through AI. This greatly enhances the gameplay for the better. Some other small additions that it does receive includes the option to control a female protagonist and a boss fight mode that unlocks later in the game. These version differences are significant, and it baffles me why a definitive version of the game hasn't been released yet. You will essentially have to play 2 different games to experience everything Persona 3 has to offer. The Persona 3 experience can be split into 2. For half of the game, you'll be playing through a life simulator in a fictional Japanese town. During the other half, you'll be dungeon crawling through a massive tower which exceeds 250 randomly generated floors. We'll start with a life sim, which is where the majority of the story will unfold. You play the role of this emo-looking high school student who arrives at the town as a transfer student. Upon arriving in his dorm, he encounters a mysterious boy, and this makes it very clear that this isn't going to be a normal school year. The thing is, every day at midnight a 25th hidden hour takes place, known as the Dark Hour. During this time, regular people are transformed into coffins and remember nothing of this phenomenon. Persona users like yourself, however, are awake during this Dark Hour, and exploring its mysteries is the driving element of the story. Persona 3's story is really good. The cast of characters that join you are all unique and likable, and the excellent voice acting really brings them to life. My only criticism here, and it's a pretty big criticism, is the lack of animations and cutscenes. As I mentioned before, all animations were cut from the portable version and instead replaced by static portraits and text. Now, the voiceovers, character art, music and sound effects all do their job as well as they can, but it's just not the same. Persona 3 has some genuinely awesome moments, and watching these events unfold could have and should have been so much better. In terms of music, I thought the Persona 3 soundtrack was a mixed bag. As you would expect, the soundtrack is composed by Shoji Meguro, who also composed music for all of the other Persona games. Now, there are some pretty awesome tracks here, with the amazing final boss theme being my favourite. A few of the others, however, leave a lot to be desired. The best example that I can give is the default track that plays during Tartarus. You'll probably be spending upwards of 30 hours in here, and this theme wears thin fast. On the bright side, you can manually change the dungeon theme to remixes from past Persona games, which is nice, but I wanted more original variety here. The narrative structure of Persona 3 works on a calendar system. The major story events will happen on predetermined days, but every other day, it's up to you how you want to spend them. After your character attends school, you'll be able to choose what you do in the afternoon and the evening. There are a load of activities to take part in, and most of these fall under 3 main categories. You could spend your time with friends to build your social links. You could partake in activities to increase your social stats, which are needed to interact with certain NPCs. days. Or in the evenings, you could explore the seemingly never-ending dungeon that is Tartarus. Back to social links. They play a huge part in Persona 3's gameplay. Each character has their own personal story that will slowly uncover through spending time with them. As you do this, your social link with them will also increase. You want to do this for two reasons. Firstly, to see what their story is all about, because some of them are really interesting. The main reason, however, is because each social link will provide level bonuses when fusing personas, which will significantly help you in battle. I've always liked the live sim aspects of the Persona games and the choices given to you each day. If you're a fan of this kind of thing, Persona 3 will deliver. Now, onto the second half of the gameplay, trekking through Tartarus. You can choose to visit this massive dungeon during the evenings, and climbing to the very top is a requirement to complete the game. Each of the 264 floors are randomly generated, meaning the layout, the treasure, and the shadows that you encounter will change every time. Unfortunately, this was one of the weaker parts of the game, as climbing this massive tower can get very repetitive. Regardless of the random elements, each floor looks, feels, and sounds the same as the last, with the exception of the walls that change every 30 levels or so. For a game where dungeon crawling is such a huge focus, there really needed to be more here to make the experience less repetitive. Now, there are a few worthwhile random elements that are always worth looking out for, such as red or gold enemies. Some floors will also randomly have no minimap or spawn rare golden chests, or even randomly cause alternate shadow behaviors such as dropping items more often. But still, there needed to be more here to make it a truly enjoyable experience. Another massive issue I had here is that your allies have an inability to follow the leader. As you run around the place focusing on the minimap and your surroundings, your allies will often lag behind, meaning that when you enter battle, they won't be there to help you. I occasionally entered battle on my own, only to die straight away because my stupid allies got held up by a wall. Come on now, I shouldn't have to worry about this. The turn-based combat system is all a game of weaknesses, as it is with every SMT game. When you land a critical hit or exploit a weakness, the character will get another turn and the enemy will be downed. If you can down all enemies at once, you'll be able to unleash an all-out attack for massive damage, and this is where you're going to want to work towards during regular encounters. Boss battles work a bit differently, however, as much of the time they don't have weaknesses, so you have to kill them the old-fashioned way. As I mentioned before, if you want, your allies can now be directly controlled rather than act based on AI patterns, which was the case with the other Persona 3 versions. I was really not a fan of having them act on their own, so I switched to direct control as soon as possible. This turn-based combat system is pretty decent and creates some great strategic boss fights. There's a lot that you need to consider, including which personas to use, since they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. Something that I do wish this system had is the ability to see upcoming turn orders. You can press a button to see who will attack next, but a turn-based system should communicate more turns in advance than this. Now, let's finish things off by talking about personas. The main character has the unique ability to summon multiple personas in battle, meaning you'll have much more flexibility and options than your other party members. Obtaining new personas can be done in two ways. Firstly, you can recruit them after battle. In many other SMT games, you have to converse with them after battle and convince them to join you. This time, however, as you fight against shadows rather than personas themselves, you'll have a chance to recruit personas through the shuffle system. Most of the time after battle, you will enter shuffle time, which is the best time of the year. There are a range of random benefits or personas that are placed on cards, and these shuffle around the place. If you select one, you'll obtain that benefit or the persona. Most of the time, the shuffles are easy to follow, but they do get a bit more difficult towards the end of the game. And I'll tell you what, the dopamine rush that I got when successfully selecting the green weed was next level, as this provides multipliers to your EXP. This felt so rewarding. The other way to obtain personas is through fusing them together. This allows you to combine 2 or 3 existing personas into a brand new one, and if you've got the right social links, they will also obtain a level bonus when doing so. When you do fuse these personas together, some of their abilities will randomly transfer across, but the fact that you can't choose which ones was a tad disappointing. In terms of customizing your other party members, there is very little that you can do outside of their equipment. Once they reach a certain level, new abilities will automatically replace older abilities, meaning my party members will be the exact same as yours. A little more customization here was sorely needed. Persona 3 Portable was an all-around enjoyable experience that took the good part of 70 hours to complete. It's certainly no Persona 5, but it does provide a similar experience in its dungeon crawling and life sim aspects. Choosing how to spend your day and interacting with others to form social links was highly addictive. Exploring Tartarus, however, was very repetitive and needed a lot more variation. At least the combat was good though. Being able to actually control your other party members is the best thing about this version of Persona 3. The number one reason to play this game, however, is for the story and the characters. There are some great moments here, even if they are held back by the lack of cutscenes. Not only that, but the change to a point-and-click interface and the removal of the answer holds this version back from being the definitive edition of Persona 3. What is your experience with Persona 3? Which versions have you played? Did you like them? Let me know in the comments below. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit that like button and sub for more RPG content coming soon. See you next time.